This area has completely gotten away from me. But at this point, I've let things go.
So I'm gonna give you my honest review.
The days are getting shorter, the temps are getting cooler, and the leaves are starting to change in fall, which means it's time for Hooked and Rooted at Home. So welcome to Season 3, Episode 1. Hi, it's Steph. Welcome back to my garden. If you're new to the channel, Hooked and Rooted at Home is a series where I transition from doing mostly gardening content to sharing a little bit of home life with a splash of gardening and some other random things. But at this point, I've let things go. I've stopped deadheading and I'm only watering if it hasn't rained for about a week. My containers are looking gorgeous because they're loving these cool temperatures. I do still have some plants to get in the ground. I have this group of conifers here that I'm going to plant in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be sure to share that with you on the channel. I also have some perennials to get planted. Let me just show you a couple of other things. So these Boston ferns are looking beautiful right now. They are the biggest they have been all season and are just really happy with these cooler temperatures. About a month ago, when I showed you what was blooming in September, I had shown you this here. This is my heptacodium, or the Seven Suns Flower Temple of Bloom. And it had beautiful white blooms on it. Well, look at it now. All of the white blooms have fallen off and it has its red bracts or calyxes. So it looks like it has red flowers from afar. So this is a gorgeous shrub or tree. But right behind us, my raised bed garden is a complete mess. There's some things I want to talk to you about, so let's go look at that. This area has completely gotten away from me. I went away at the end of August, and when I got back home, we completely jumped into our sheet mulching well bed project, and I never had the time to come over and tend to this garden. And I'm really disappointed in myself about it because it was so much work to grow so many of these beautiful flowers from seed and to store my dahlia tubers over the winter, plant them out in the spring, and I've hardly been able to cut from them this season. So in the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get out here, cut some flowers, make some arrangements, and do some cleanup. We'll also be working on something we like to call the fall switcheroo, where we move some things around in the garden and do some transplanting. One of those things is going to be this pine that is getting pretty large, and we have a better space picked out for it. So there is still quite a bit of gardening left to do, but for now, let's head inside. Now that we're heading into the colder months and spending more time cozying up indoors, I'd love to know, what hobbies are you most interested in, and what are your plans for the winter? For me, I'm planning on doing some reading, catching up on a few Netflix series, and expanding on a hobby, crochet. When I started wearing crochet hats in my winter videos, I kept getting the same questions. Did I make them, and were they knitted? Yes, I made them, but they're crocheted, and the name Hooked and Rooted actually comes from my love of crochet and gardening, since the hook is the tool that you use in crochet. The funny part, I don't actually know how to knit, but I'm finally learning with Craftsy, who is sponsoring today's video. Craftsy is an online community and resource where millions of crafters, makers, and DIY enthusiasts find creative inspiration, advance their skills, and learn new ones along the way. Craftsy offers more than 2,000 exciting classes in over 20 popular categories like crochet, knitting, painting, photography, cake decorating, woodworking, gardening, and more. I recently picked up some knitting supplies, and I'm really looking forward to exploring all of the classes available and learning this new skill during this season away from gardening. My first class is Startup Library Knitting by Susan B. Anderson. This class includes 17 lessons that I can take at my own pace. Craftsy makes it simple and fun to pick up new skills. Their classes are broken into short, easy lessons taught by friendly, award-winning instructors who walk you through step by step. You can learn anytime, anywhere, and there's something for every interest and skill level. As a member, you'll have 24/7 access to all of the classes, plus a community of makers and DIY lovers to share ideas, ask questions, and stay inspired. The first 1,000 people to click on the link in the video description will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49, valid for new members only. With over 2,000 classes in more than 20 creative categories, there's always something new to learn. I'll have the link below in the description of the video as well as in the pinned comment. I finally got around to doing a little bit of fall decorating. So here on my back porch, I keep it pretty minimal. This is the entrance by our kitchen, and I usually just put down a mat and a wreath. I've had this wreath for several years. I really like it. I had originally bought it at Michael's, and I haven't found the need to get a new one because I only put it up for such a short time. It hasn't been long enough to get sick of it. And here we are on the front porch. Now it gets pretty dirty this time of year with different leaves and things that blow around. So I'm just going to use the leaf blower to clean everything off. And I'm putting out my fall rugs. I've also had these for several years. I purchased them at Aldi and they're still in good shape. And as you can see, my son has already done his Halloween decorating. So I had George help me to move around the skeletons so I could get down my rugs. Now, the other thing that I like to put on my front porch for fall are my pumpkin stacks. I've had these for several years. I originally bought them at the Home Depot. They're porcelain. They've gotten a little faded over the years, but I really like them, so I put those out as well. Now, the porch is done for fall, and I picked up some pumpkins to add a little bit of festive flair. Now, if you are looking to buy some pumpkins, the best price I have found is at Aldi. I went grocery shopping and they had pumpkins for $3.95. So if you buy pumpkins with your groceries, naturally it comes out of the grocery budget. So that's how I'm justifying it. But I bought 7 pumpkins, I placed them all around, and I really like the way it looks. But you can see here that my Sahara double raspberry ripple zinnias are still looking gorgeous. They're such an amazing short stature and prolific blooming zinnia. I plan on growing them every year for that same spot. So I placed the pumpkins, some here on the walls heading up to our front walkway, some on the driveway walls like you just saw, and on the front porch, as well as by the back stairs. And as I was putting away my leaf blower, I noticed that the wind had knocked over this pot that I was growing this begonia in. And I love this blue and white pot, so I was so bummed about this. I've had it for about 3 seasons now, so I'll have to find a new one next season. Rocco loves to sun in this area on the couch every afternoon, and we're going to look at a few recipes that I want to share with you. But see if you can count how many times you see Rocco popping up, and then we will visit with him after we are done cooking. But the first recipe I want to share with you is a delicious blueberry muffin recipe. I have tried several internet recipes over the years, and this one has been the best one I have found. So I'm going to save you the trouble, and trust me, you are going to want to make these blueberry muffins. So you just need basic pantry ingredients: some sugar, flour, baking powder, salt, vanilla extract, butter, eggs, and of course blueberries. And so the thing I like to do first when I cook any recipe is to get my recipe out and bring out all the ingredients that I need and all of the utensils that I'll need. I find this much easier just to have everything at my fingertips while I'm going through and making the recipe. So first you want to combine your dry ingredients, and then you're going to combine your wet ingredients. Now this isn't my recipe. Like I said, it's one that I found online. So I will link the recipe with all of the ingredients and the amounts down below in the description of the video. It's free to access. So all you have to do is click on the link and it'll take you right to this blueberry muffin recipe. Now I will tell you that I like to buy my blueberries a few days in advance, because blueberries, if they're not ripe, will sometimes be a bit tart. So letting them ripen in the refrigerator for a few days before you use them is really helpful. It also helps when they are a bit more ripe for them to pop open when you're baking your blueberry muffins, which will give them that really beautiful color throughout and will also help distribute the flavor throughout the muffin. Now you can see that the batter gets pretty thick. So when you are putting in your blueberry muffins, you're going to just gently fold them in so that you don't smush them. You want to keep them in berry form as you incorporate them into the dough. The next step is to make the delicious crumble topping. And again, for this, super easy, just some white sugar, some brown sugar, a little bit of flour, and salt and butter. A little bit of cinnamon as well. The hardest part about this for me is cutting up that cold butter into chunks and making sure that it incorporates well into that crumble topping. So if you work at it with a fork for a couple of minutes, eventually it gets pretty evenly distributed. And the best thing that I have found to scoop my batter into my muffin cups is a cookie scoop, which is a smaller version of an ice cream scoop. And 2 scoops per cup is the perfect measurement to get an even 12 muffins. So here I'm just putting the crumble topping on, and then it goes right into your preheated oven. These are just delicious. Look how beautiful and golden they come out. All of those blueberries pop. And of course, Rocco could smell them baking, and he was first in line to taste them. But I made them as the kids were coming home from school, and I'll just say they are not going to last too long. Usually they're gone by the next day. So the next thing I'm doing is working on dinner, and I'm going to share with you 2 really great recipes for pork tenderloin. But first, let's start working on the side, which are these delicious roasted potatoes. Now, I have shared this potato recipe on my channel before on a Hooked and Rooted at Home episode. Super easy. You can use red potatoes, russet, yellow, any kind of potatoes. You just want to cube them up really well. Rinse them to take off the starches, pat them dry, and then you put a generous amount of olive oil. I find putting the olive oil first really helps the seasoning stick. And then you're just going to add salt, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and my secret ingredient, smoked paprika. I can link it below. I buy a huge container of it on Amazon and it's really inexpensive, but it gives them a really nice coloring and smoky flavor. So then you just pop them in the oven and we're going to start working on the pork tenderloin. Now, this is such an easy recipe for a baked pork tenderloin. And most of the times when you buy these pork tenderloins, you're getting 2 in a package. So I'm going to show you 2 back-to-back recipes that I usually make. So the first one is this baked tenderloin. And then the next day I use the second one to use up the leftovers and make another dinner. So with this recipe, I will also link it below. Super easy. You're going to make a dry rub. And so I just prepped that dry rub that you're then going to put onto your tenderloins after you've patted them a bit dry. So you take a paper towel like you saw me do, take most of the moisture off, and then you put that rub on them. And I also sprayed a little olive oil on my casserole dish or baking dish just to make sure that nothing sticks. Now, the next step that I take after I rub all of the dry rub onto the tenderloins is I do like to put a little bit of chicken stock and a white wine into the baking dish so that the drippings will render a sauce. So I just use chicken stock, like I said, about a cup or so, and then about 1/3 a cup of a white wine. You can use a Pinot Grigio, a Sauvignon Blanc. And then I will dice up some garlic. Now, this is garlic I grew in my own garden, and I'm getting ready to do that again this month. It was such an easy crop to grow, and it's delicious and so fun. So it's really rewarding. If you haven't grown garlic, I highly recommend it. So you just dice up a few cloves of garlic, about 2 or 3, throw that into the bottom of the baking dish, and pop your tenderloins into the oven. And you can see the potatoes, I gave them a bit of a head start. And I also roasted some broccoli and some sweet potatoes. Now, when you take your roast out of the oven, you let it rest for about 5 minutes, and then you can start slicing it up. Letting your meat rest allows it to retain many of the juices without having them run out too quickly, which can dry out your meat. And if you're ever looking for Rocco while I'm cooking, you can find him in the kitchen, hoping that something drops to the ground so that he can get a snack. You can see that the drippings from our baking dish will make a really great sauce. So once I start plating up the meat, I'm able to just pour it right over. And when you pour over that sauce, make sure that you get a couple of good bits of the garlic in there. It adds some really great flavor. So these roasted potatoes make a great companion whether you're cooking pork, beef, chicken, or even fish. And my family is not big on veggies, but roasted broccoli tastes a lot better, and I can sometimes get them to eat some of that. This makes a really great weeknight meal because everything cooks at the same time, and it is delicious.
You can enjoy it.
Gee, Rocco.
Inhaled it, of course.
That was fast. It's coffee time. Are you going to have one of my blueberry muffins?
Yes, so I've been waiting all night for one of these. So are these the blueberry muffins that you've made in the past?
Yes.
Yeah.
The most recent recipe.
All right, so I'm going to give you my honest review, but thinking back to the last time you made these, they were really, really good. So
I've been looking for a really good blueberry muffin recipe for a while, and I've made a ton of them that were not great. This one, hands down, best blueberry muffin to make at home.
they actually taste like they should be bad for you.
Well, that's a good
Like,
sign.
are they all natural?
Well, I mean, pantry ingredients, sugar,
Right.
flour, eggs, butter.
But they weren't from a
box mix? No.
Right. Yeah, these are really good. So my honest opinion for a blueberry muffin, I'd have to give them a 10.
They're solid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to seem like I'm going to give everything a 10. But honestly, these for a blueberry muffin, it's perfect.
Look at all those berries.
So good.
I'll link the recipe below. It's not my recipe. It's just one that I found online, but definitely a solid recipe.
It is really good. I give it a 10.
The next night, we're going to use up the rest of the pork tenderloin that we roasted by making what I like to call Mexican fiesta rice. Now, I'm making it with the leftover pork tenderloin, but you can really use any protein with this. You can use chicken, beef, etc. So whatever you have on hand. You can even make it vegetarian by maybe using some lentils with the rice. But after I cubed up my pork tenderloin, I'm making a seasoning mix. I like to make my own seasoning mixes when it comes to tacos, and this one here I call a Cajun seasoning mix. I'll list my recipe below for my Cajun seasoning mix, and to make taco mix, I just add cumin, which gives it that little bit of that Mexican flavor, which is exactly what I did here. Now, after I have my seasoning mixed, I'm just going to add some oil to my pan to start heating that up. You can use olive oil or avocado oil. And here are the ingredients. You can use fresh or frozen peppers and onions, some corn, rice, a small can of tomato sauce, some diced tomatoes, a can of black beans, and I'm adding a jalapeno. If you use Rotel diced tomatoes, you'd need 2 cans, and those already have chilies, which will add a little bit of heat. After the oil is heated, I went ahead and threw in my cubed pork tenderloin, and after a couple of minutes, I'm adding in my frozen peppers and onions. And you're just going to let the pork tenderloin just needs to really be heated through, and then you're going to let the peppers and onions cook down. And while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and de-seed and chop up this jalapeno that I grew in my garden. Now, the membrane and the seeds are pretty hot, and if that stays on your fingers, it can burn a little bit. So after you get your jalapeno all chopped up and thrown into the pan, make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly. Now, you can skip this if you don't like things too spicy. You can omit the jalapeno altogether. And like I said, if you use the Rotel, there would be no need to add anything additional. And now I'm going to go ahead and season the pork tenderloin as well as the peppers here in the pan and just mix everything and let it simmer for a few minutes. The next step is going to be to prep my rice. I like to use basmati rice in all my recipes, but you can use any kind of white rice or even brown rice. And I like to rinse it really well to take away some of that starch because I find that it makes my rice cook a lot looser and it doesn't get so gummy and sticky. And for this recipe, I'm using 1.5 cups of dry rice and 3 cups of water, and that will render me 3 cups of cooked rice. It's usually double the amount of the dry rice. Now, you could cook your rice in chicken stock, which will flavor it nicely, but in this case, because I already added some seasoning to the meat and vegetable mix, I'm just gonna go ahead and cook my rice in water. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and drain and rinse my black beans. Anytime I use beans that come in a can, I like to rinse them again to take off any of the starches and preservatives that might be in the can, and I usually just rinse them until the water runs clear. Then I'm going to set them to the side and let them drain until I'm ready to add them into my mixture. I'm going to go ahead and add my tomato sauce and my diced tomatoes to my meat and vegetable mix. And I'm not going to drain the diced tomatoes. Everything goes in just the way it is. So first your can of tomato sauce and then your diced tomatoes. Now, I could have used 2 cans of Rotel, but I only had 1 large can of petite diced tomatoes in my pantry, so that is what I'm going to use, and then I added the jalapeno. So you can always just look around and sub things for stuff you might have on hand. And we're just gonna let that simmer while the rice finishes cooking. And just about the time when the rice is done, we're going to go ahead and add our beans that have been draining along with the bag of the frozen corn. And you're going to let everything heat through. You can see how beautiful and colorful that turns out. Now that the rice is done, you're going to just stir everything around to incorporate the rice into your mixture. And this is going to combine everything. I really love to cook at home, and I do cook about 6 out of 7 nights of the week. With a family of 4 to go out to dinner, I find that I can buy groceries for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the whole week for the amount of money it costs us to go out to eat as a family of 4 just one time. So it's really cost effective to cook at home, and you can add healthier ingredients and generally eat better. The last step was to add about a cup of cheese. You can use a shredded cheddar or a Mexican or taco blend cheese. And then I just kind of put the lid on the pan and let it melt for another 5 minutes before serving. Now, to serve this, you have several options when it comes to the toppings, or you can just serve it as is. You can use some sour cream and hot sauce, which is how George prefers it. You can also squeeze on a little bit of lime, some chopped cilantro, even crush up some tortilla chips. And I also like to top it with some avocado. So this is a great way to use up some leftovers, and it's a really delicious meal. And the best part is that it comes together in under 30 minutes, which is key during busy weeknights. And a Rocco update. If you've caught an episode of Hooked and Rooted at Home before, you are already familiar with our pup Rocco. And if you're new, let me give you a little update. So Rocco is a 7-year-old Italian Greyhound, and the favorite place for him to be in our home is in the kitchen, as you noticed with the cooking segment. If I'm cooking, he's right there beside me, hoping that something drops on the floor that he can catch. He also loves to bark at delivery people. So anytime that FedEx, UPS, or the Amazon truck comes, he sure lets us know by going onto his perch and barking out the window. Also, when he sees any neighborhood dogs. Other than that, he is a pretty quiet pup, and he sleeps most of the day, with the exception of when he gets his zoomies, which usually happens once a day around late afternoon. He will run around with a toy in his mouth and do circles and get really wild. But he pretty much sleeps 23 hours out of 24 of the day. He's a very lazy pup, a very cuddly and sweet pup. But lately, he has gotten a little extra naughty. I don't know if it's coming with age, but he used to go in the trash pretty often. In fact, if you've ever noticed in one of our cooking segments that I have this little beige box on the trash cabinet, that is called a tattletale. And that is an alarm that beeps if he opens the cabinet. And so we've had to keep that on there for quite a while so that he doesn't get himself into the trash and eat something he's not supposed to. But recently, we went out to dinner, and Rocco was jealous that he couldn't come along, and he somehow got into his cabinet where his food is. Now, his cabinet has a knob, so it's pretty impressive as to how he was able to even open that cabinet. And inside, we have a plastic bin that has a snap top with his food in it. It keeps it nice and fresh and everything contained, right? He was able to open the cabinet, get that container out, knock it over, and somehow open that snap top lid. There was food everywhere. We have no idea how much he ate. And then he went right into his crate like he did nothing when we found the mess and were cleaning it up. Acted all innocent. But for the most part, he's actually a really good boy. But this is Rocco, and you will be seeing him on our episodes of Hooked and Rooted at Home. And we hope that you love seeing him as much as we love having him as our pet. Well, that's a wrap on episode 1 of At Home. Let me know what you thought of the recipes and if you're planning on trying any of them. I'd also love to hear from you. What kind of things would you like to see on this series this fall and winter? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.